Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me play Warframe. Today we're going to go over my Mirage build. I don't use Mirage a whole lot, but I really like her design. Like the kind of like Harlequin thing they've got going on is really cool. This is Mirage Prime. Mirage Prime skin is absolutely awesome. I really like it. Always looks amazing. But first things first, as always, we'll go over the abilities. Firstly we have her passive, which sliding lasts 85% longer and acrobatic maneuvers are 50% faster. I very rarely notice this. It's kind of a very weak passive as far as passives go. But, I mean, it is like a benefit. It's not like it's a bad thing. First ability is Hall of Mirrors. She will create copies around herself. And whatever you shoot, they will shoot as well. So you'll be doing extra damage. As it stands, there's 4 doppelgangers. So there's you in the center and there's 4 surrounding you at each sort of corner. On my current build, it lasts for like 55 seconds, so nearly a minute, and they do 39% of your damage. This will also help survivability a bit, because enemies will shoot at the images as well as you, so like, sometimes if you don't have this on, they'll just shoot you, whereas if you have this ability going, sometimes they'll like shoot at the images rather than shooting at you, so that lowers the damage you're taking, which is nice as well. But in all honesty, it's not really a survivability thing, it's just ups your damage by a fair significant margin. Because you have 4 guys each doing 39% of your damage, so you're doing slightly more than double damage, essentially. Well, I mean, like 150% extra damage, I guess. Second ability, Sleight of Hand. I pretty much never use this. So much so that I barely understand how it works. Like, maybe I've been missing something, it's just amazing, but every time I've used it, it's been boring and kind of stupid, and it's easier just to shoot enemies. But you booby trap, like, an object, like a container, or... not like, I've noticed you can do it on enemies and stuff as well, and corpses, you can do it on lots of different stuff. But it conjures, like, a item, like, what does it call it? An irresistible jewel, and it bursts with, like, sort of radial blind in darkness, and it does, like, a radiant explosion of damage in light. You can do multiple, like, combos with the 1, so you can do multiple if you cast it with a 1-up, but, like, yeah, it's not great. As you can see there, the actual damage is, like, nothing, so the blind is better, but in all honesty, choosing whether or not you're casting an ability in light or in dark is very difficult in Warframe, because where light and dark are is somewhat nebulous. Like, you may be thinking you're standing in dark and really you're in perfectly bright light as far as the game's concerned. Which is a problem you can find with her third ability, Eclipse, as well. Eclipse is very useful, though, because no matter what's happening, it's a good ability. If you're standing in light, you'll deal extra damage, and if you're standing in shadows, enemies find it hard to see you. It's essentially damage reduction is what it is. Sort of the lore talk point is that they miss you more. In reality, they're not missing you, they're just hitting you when doing 5% of the damage. So if you're in shadow, you have 95% damage reduction, which is very good, helps with survivability a lot. And if you're in the light, which, to be fair, is most cases, most of the time this is a damage buff ability rather than a survivability ability, but, you know, depending, you get 390% increased damage, which is significant. And once again, this lasts for about a minute, 55 seconds. And finally, we have Prism. You fall off like a disco ball, and it will do like a bunch of damage. I think radiation damage? Yeah, radiation damage to a bunch of enemies in an area. And if you do it again, it will do a blind for 30 seconds in a fairly large area. With my build, anyway. But that's about it. She's fairly simple to use. Go for the build. This is my build here. As I said, I don't use her that often, but this is the build that I've worked out so far. A lot of duration, a bit of range, a bunch of strength, and efficiency I don't really need because I use Prime Flow. But essentially with this build, it gives you like nearly a minute on her Eclipse and her Hall of Mirrors, and essentially you just always want Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors on, and then occasionally cast your 4. That's pretty much how I use her. So, yeah, you want duration, so these abilities are on as long as possible. And then you want range and strength, so that these abilities do more for you. But we have Corrosive Projection. I always have Corrosive Projection. It's just good to get rid of armor. Cutting Drift for the ability range. The slide and friction, again, really nice, but not necessary. Quick thinking, it keeps you alive when you would die, so once you go down to 2 health, it starts draining your energy rather than draining your health when you take damage. Prime flow, a bunch more energy. If you don't have prime flow, regular flow will do. Narrow-minded for a bunch of ability duration at the cost of a bunch of range. Prime continuity to get that ability duration back. Transient fortitude for ability strength at the cost of duration. Stretch for a bit more range. Augur reach for a bit more range. And Umbral Intensify for a bunch more ability strength. Arcanes, Arcane Aegis, and Arcane Nullifier. My staple build on pretty much everything these days. If I had better Arcanes, I would put better Arcanes, but honestly, I can't be bothered farming Eidolons. But that's about it. I'm going to show the level 50 test first. One thing I will actually note here as well is that there is a meme build where if you use Hikau Prime, or any thrown weapons essentially, I haven't actually even bothered formatting the Hikau Prime, but if you use Concealed Explosives, it is a mod for thrown weapons that will give them an 80% chance to explode, and they do a lot of damage when they explode. So if you do this, this is a fairly simple build with just Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for multi-shot and fire rate, and then we have Scorch and Frostbite for more blast damage, and Status Chance, and then Stunning Speed, which gives you Reload Speed and Status Chance. But when you've got this with Mirage, you're throwing 4 times as many, and the explosion damage, I believe, is the same. Like, it'll be the same as your base damage, so you're actually getting like a shit ton of damage in doing this. It's kind of memey and stupid, and you can kill yourself very easily, because Concealed Explosive, that explosion does damage to yourself, so you can die very easily doing it. But nonetheless, it's a kind of fun build, if nothing else. And I'll show it off in the test, because why not? First things first, we'll do level 50. I didn't actually simulate the enemies. That was silly of me. I should go down there, really. You can see there, it takes out enemies very quickly with the Hikau at level 50. Because there's a lot of Hikau going and a lot of explosions. Just be very careful you don't hit the floor, because if you hit the floor right in front of you, you're probably going to go down. You can see here that it kind of like hides them from your field of view so it doesn't get in your way, but there's 4 fake Mirages surrounding me. We can cast her 2. Didn't really work as I wanted it to. It didn't do the blind. But let's cast my 4. See there, it's doing damage. If we hit it again, it will do the blind. While an enemy's blinded, we can do a whoop. I was about to say a stealth kill, but we didn't because it went out of blind. But I think that's all the enemies dead. Actually, I think we're done. The Hikau does do work at kind of low to middling levels. And as you can see there, I was taking a lot of damage, but at the same time, like, with quick thinking and prime flow, taking a lot of damage is far less relevant because you're going to survive even if you take, like, ludicrous amounts of damage. But that showed off all of her abilities pretty easily. And as you can see, I don't find her 2 very useful. It didn't seem to do really anything when I used it. Once again, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I've never really found her 2 to be particularly useful. I think if they ever rework her, they should change her 2, and the rest are probably fine. Alright, and we're back. Sorry about that. My hard drive got full, so it cut that out like halfway through the 145 test. But I don't know where it cut out specifically, so I'm gonna hopefully not re-say things I've already said. But the level 145 test has some huge problems with survivability with her, I find. Anything over about a level, I don't know, 100, 110, I start to get some problems. Like, as you can see there, the amount of damage that did there was kind of ludicrous. Also, I'm not sure where, if anywhere, in this area it's counted as dark, which also makes it slightly more difficult. Also, I shouldn't really be using the Hikau to do this. I should just use my vectors, because it does a lot more damage. And I can just run around more. Distracted some enemies. Most of this is the Vectus. It's definitely worth noting. Like, the vast majority of this is just the Vectus doing work. Could die here. As I was about to say, could die here. I forgot to hit my 3. As I said, you always want your 1 and your 3 up. The one problem she does have is that her 4 takes a very long time to cast. As you can see there, 2 bombard rockets at that level and you're dead. Strictly speaking, I suppose if you're standing in the shadows, you should have more damage resistance, but as I said, in the Simulacron, I'm not entirely sure there's anywhere that has shadows in. I think everywhere is technically light here, which makes it slightly more difficult. There you go, as I said. Difficulty surviving. Bombard's dead. That helps. But yeah, this kind of level, you're relying on guns. There's some tests that you can go through with some Warframes where literally you can just use their abilities and come out of the test perfectly clean. Mirage definitely requires weapons after you get up to higher level stuff. Now, I've fiddled around with the build a bit to try and get her more survivability. The problem that I find doing that is the fact that it makes her abilities incredibly lackluster. And one of the benefits of her abilities is upping your damage, so it goes well to put her with good weapons, because you want to do as much damage as possible. As it stands now, if I face the correct direction, at least 2 of my Vectus bullets are hitting things. And doubling your Vectus damage, not quite doubling, but you know what I mean. Increasing your Vectus damage is always going to be good, because the Vectus is outright amazing. But to survive in high level stuff, you have to move around a lot more, and really heavily rely on guns and weapons. That's the downside to her, I suppose, is she doesn't scale into super high level stuff. But again, like level 145, level 150, that kind of stuff you very rarely see for the average player of Warframe. Yeah, so that's my Mirage build. Please give me tips if you find something better, more survivable. Honestly, she doesn't need to be super survivable. I'm never taking her on anything that's going to be that kind of high level mission anyway. But for those people who like main Mirage or whatever and take her into like million year survivals, let me know how your build differs from mine. I just feel that, like, she doesn't really scale that high. Like, she's fun at, like, middling to low-level stuff, but when you get to high-level stuff, it's kind of like, eh? But, anyway, I'm rambling at this point, so thanks for watching. I shall see you next time, where we'll take on Necros, I believe. Thanks for watching. I shall see you next time. Bye.